In today's episode, we talk about the coaster that saved Kentucky Kingdom and proved that lightning can strike twice. Welcome to Airtime Traveler. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Roller Coaster History Podcast. You are listening to Airtime Traveler. My name is Nathan Grace, and as always, I'm joined by my wife and lovely co-host.
Hey, I'm Haley Grace.
And thank you for tuning into this week's episode.
Yeah. I am so tired.
It's been a long day.
I think it's been one of the longest days we've had in a long time. Like, just ridiculous long.
Yeah, it's been a day. So last night, before we went to bed, we noticed that it was a little warm in our house, a little warmer than we usually keep it. It's usually a sign that something's going on with the air conditioning, which has happened a couple times since we moved into this house. So yeah. Nothing too substantial, just, regular, little maintenance things they have to come in and fix. So we were a little nervous that that's what was going on. And sure enough, by like 11 o'clock today, it was like 80 degrees in our house and climbing. So
I got up to 86.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, we could tell pretty early on this morning that something was wrong, and but someone came at this afternoon and said, "Yep, the motor burned up in your air conditioning. It's going to be $450." I'm like, "Great,
awesome,
fantastic,
thank you."
So that's thrown a loop in potentially some amusement park trips coming up later this year. We'll see. So just fair warning. I know we've talked about Hershey Park and Busch Gardens and potentially some others, but just we'll see what happens. So that is the one tricky thing about this hobby, is it can be expensive. And other things have to take priority. So
we're hoping one day to have enough followers to have it pay for our trips.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Come on.
That would be great, though. That reminds me, though, I've been trying to find it and I can't find it anywhere. So I don't know if I dreamt about this because it's been so hard to find, but I swear that when we were at Kings Island, I saw like a home decor, like a sign to like put in an office, and it was something along the lines of I'm just here to pay for my roller coaster trips or something like that. So it was just kind of a funny little thing that I was thinking about. I was like, yeah, that's kind of, I enjoy my job, but yeah, I do put in the work to pay for the fun things, and to pay the bills obviously, but also to pay for all the roller coaster trips. So
yeah, it's true.
Anyway, so it's been a day. So if we sound tired, it's because we are.
We are tired. It's not even sounding tired. I'm gonna fully admit it. Anyways, let's talk about coasters.
Yeah, let's get.
Because it's been a roller coaster day.
Yeah. Well, if this is your first time tuning into the podcast, welcome. Here at Airtime Traveler.
I hope that this isn't their first time. That'd be an interesting way to have them listen to this as the first episode.
I'm sure every episode we have first-time listeners. So.
Well, I'm just saying, they had to listen to us complain about our day. It's their first episode.
Oh, everybody complains about their day. That's normal, right?
Is it?
I think most people do.
Okay.
I'm sure there's plenty of people that complain more than we do.
Touche.
You don't have too much to complain about, so. Well, like I said, if this is your first time tuning into the podcast, here at Airtime Traveler, we do roller coaster history, but rather than talk about history of the roller coaster in general, we take one roller coaster and we dive into the history of that coaster. I am a coaster enthusiast and have been for a long time, and my wife Haley is a member of the GP, or the general public. And so I'm here to do the research and tell the stories, and she's here to listen and to make me more interesting. And that's kind of how it works here. So, like we've said, she's over the years as we've been doing this, she's become kind of a GP coaster enthusiast hybrid, so to speak. Like she knows more than the average GP, but she doesn't know as much as the coaster enthusiast.
Not your average GP.
Somewhere in the middle. So, but yeah, guess we can just jump right into today's episode. We are going back to Kentucky Kingdom for today's episode. Now, this is a park that Haley did not get to go to last year because she was pregnant, and so we didn't really see a point in being there, and she couldn't ride anything, so she was spending time with family while I went to the park. So we'll see when we get back there, maybe when they open their next coaster. It's not too far from us. I mean, it's probably like a 9-hour drive, and we have family that lives like an hour from the park, so it's not too bad. So it's not too difficult to get there, not like some other parks. But we're going to be talking about Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom today. Now, I will say, for those of you that are listened to our Storm Chaser episode from last season, there is going to be some of the story that kind of overlaps just because of the nature of the coasters opening 2 years apart from one another. So if there's some of the episode that sounds the same, yes, there is, the both of the coasters have part of the same history, so I will admit to that. But I figured it's still telling a new story, and you probably won't remember anything from that episode.
I don't remember what I had for breakfast.
Yeah, so this will be all new to you. And, some people didn't listen to the Storm Chaser episode, so this will still be all new to you as well. So Lightning Run opened in 2014 at a cost of $7 million, which is probably one of the least expensive roller coasters we've talked about on the podcast. Most of what we do is at least $10 million. So 2,500 feet long, 100 feet tall, with a top speed of 55 miles per hour. I have no idea what the average wait time is because Kentucky Kingdom doesn't post those. From what I've heard, weekends it can get up to like an hour and a half, 2 hours if it's really bad. But generally speaking, you're not going to see anything more than 45 minutes. So, which, it's pretty typical. Yeah. It's at the front of the park, so it's really bad at the beginning of the day, and then it kind of calms down later in the day. So, pretty typical of coasters that you see when you walk in the front gate.
Yep.
In the CoasterBot rankings, it ranks at number 41 in the country. That's not too shabby. Okay. Yeah, we've been talking about a lot of coasters in the top 100 this season, so I don't know why that is. It's just kind of the way it happened, but
because we're cool.
Yeah, we like talking about the good coasters this year. So ranks below coasters such as Phantom's Revenge at Kennywood, Railblazer at California's Great America, and Twisted Cyclone at Six Flags Over Georgia. Ranks above coasters such as Wonder Woman Flight of Courage at Six Flags Magic Mountain, Stunt Pilot at Silverwood, and Jersey Devil Coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure. At Kentucky Kingdom, it ranks second behind Storm Chaser, which is the episode we did last season. That's also how I rank them, but it is so close. Like, I think to this day, they're right next to each other in my rankings. Like, in my overall rankings, like all the coasters I've been on, I think I have Storm Chaser just ahead of Lightning Run. Like, I had a really hard time choosing which one was my favorite, so they're both very good.
Oh, now I'm excited to ride it because I love Storm Chaser.
Not Storm Chaser.
Storm
Runner at Hershey Park. Yeah, Storm Chaser is
like
at Kentucky Kingdom.
We are tired, so keeping track of coasters is like on the bottom of my list tonight. So,
well, that's totally fine because we introduced this by saying that you remember the GP, so there's no judgment when you mix coasters.
Thanks.
So that's the point, right?
Sure.
If I introduced you as a coaster enthusiast, other coaster enthusiasts would be like, "Man, I can't believe she mixed up Storm Runner and Storm Chaser."
How dare you?
I know. But since you remember the GP, just knowing that Storm Runner is a coaster that at a park is more than other GP would know. So
okay, if you say so. I think you're just telling me to make me feel better, but
well, that's my job as your husband, isn't it? So the park has a really good 1-2 punch, so to speak, because the other three coasters are way further down in the CoasterBot rankings, probably like lower than 150, I think, all of the other three. But then, Storm Chaser and Lightning Run are both in the top 50. So, Review of the name. I think it's a good name. I think it's typical roller coaster name. You know, a lot of roller coasters use Run, you know, Outlaw Run, Storm Runner. You know, that's just kind of a common.
Yeah, lots of Run.
Yeah, a lot of coasters that use that. Light Cycle Run at, you know, Magic Kingdom. There's just, you know, lots of coasters that use that. So, but it's not a bad name. And it actually, we'll talk about later in the episode, the name actually is a callback to some of the other coasters at the park. So it does have a double meaning there. Review of the paint scheme. This is actually one of the more unique paint schemes on a coaster, because like the electric blue of the track is pretty, you know, typical. There's other coasters that have that, but I gotta say the forest green supports is pretty different from other coasters.
It like blends in.
It does kind of blend in, which
so it's almost like you can't see the supports, you see the track.
I kind of like.
I actually love that.
Like I don't dislike when you can see the support structure of coasters, because obviously that, you know, that happens all the time, but it's just kind of different, and I like different. You know, it's kind of interesting to see. I don't know if that was done on purpose to, you know, make the support structure blend in. It really makes the electric blue of the track
stand
just
out.
pop.
That's what they're saying. It's because the supports blend in, like it almost looks like it's floating.
Yeah.
So
it's an interesting paint scheme. I like it. It's good. So a review of the trains. I like the colors of the trains too. I've always said it that I like it when the trains are a different color than the track. I think parks should generally try to aim for that. And so I like the purple train better. So, but that's probably biased because I like purple better than green.
True.
So I don't know if you have a preference between the two trains. So
the green one kind of makes me. It looks like Jolly Rancher vibe. Is that?
Oh, like a green apple green almost. Yeah. I get that. I can see that. So, but they both look good.
They do.
Yeah.
For two different reasons, I feel like the green stands out more.
Agreed. Yeah, I do agree with that.
And the purple, like, looks good. It just kind of blends in with
blends
that
in a little bit more.
Blue.
So
yeah.
So. Here's the park's description of the ride.
Here we go.
This 10-story steel coaster starts off with a pulse-pounding 100-foot, 80-degree drop. That's almost straight to the ground. Check out a video preview of the thrills Lightning Run has in store for you. I gotta say, I think that's the shortest description we've ever had on the show.
Description. Yes.
Which is weird, because I was like, was Storm Chasers like that? And so I pulled it up, and Storm Chaser had like a full paragraph, pretty typical stuff. So I don't know if this was the last description that the, you know, whoever built the website was working on, and they're just like, I'm just gonna call it a day. Just like, just look at the video below, like. So I don't know, but you know, points for being concise, I suppose. So
sure.
So customer reviews. There weren't a ton of reviews. I think there's only like 29 reviews on the ride, which is so funny that, you know, we can go, you know, from one park that has like 2,000 reviews, and then you go to another one and there's like 20. So I don't know what that is, because Holiday World was the same way, which is only like, you know, an hour from this park. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if like all these people in Southern Indiana and Northern Kentucky are just like, reviews? What's that? Like, I don't know what that is.
Reviews. There you go. Now we need to go and leave a review so they have another one.
So yeah. So it gets a 4.6 out of 5 on Google Reviews, which is kind of low, but also it could be pretty skewed because, you know, there's only 29 people. So
True.
If one, I mean, to give you a perspective, this coaster has less reviews than our podcast does.
Oh.
Like that, to give you a perspective on that, like that's just strange. So here's a 5-star review. Not the largest coaster, but it is a lot of fun and provides great airtime.
Okay.
Nice review there.
Yeah.
5 stars. Lightning Run is an awesome 100-foot steel coaster. It packs some serious, enjoyable airtime and fun bank turns throughout. Makes me question why there aren't more of these Chance Hyper GTXs at other amusement parks. Here's our weekly Can You Spot the Coaster Enthusiast and the coaster reviews here. In the back row, the first drop is the most powerful drop in the park. My personal favorite moments were the first drop and everything up until the final bunny hills. Speaking of the final bunny hills, they hurt a lot. I'm pretty sure it's my height though. I'm 6 feet tall and my thighs were not having a fun time. I will piggyback onto this and say this. If you ride this coaster, like one time is fine.
Yeah.
But when I was at the park, it was pretty dead that day. I rode Lightning Run 5 times, and I literally had bruised thighs the next day. Now, granted, I did also ride Storm Chaser 5 times, which also could do that. So, you know, I rode crazy intense ejector airtime coasters like 10, 11, 12 times that day. So my thighs were feeling it by the end of the day.
Bruises on your
but it was worth it because they're awesome. See, that's the GP side of you talking. Enthusiasts are like this guy where he's like, they hurt a lot.
It's like when we went to Kansas City and you were like, let's give myself a headache over and over.
See, I didn't get a headache on it though, not like you did. So I'm talking about Zambezi Zinger. So
yeah.
So, and then this guy also mentions awesome color scheme as well, really stands out from the other coasters, which kind of exactly what we were saying. Here's another 5-star, absolutely fantastic coaster. Airtime is extremely good. It feels a lot like an RMC. Oh, here's another round of Spot the Coaster Enthusiast.
Come on.
I really hope more of these Chance Rides Hyper GTX coasters are built because they are cheap and small yet provide spectacular ride experiences. Here's another 5-star. Usually we do a lot of 1-stars, but there was literally 2 1-star reviews on this on the entire list of reviews. So we got a few more 5-stars this week than we usually do. 5 stars. It was really fun considering it was my first time going on a roller coaster, even though my leg hurt after, but it's definitely worth it. See? it hurt, but I like it. It's like the John Mellencamp song that hurts so good. Yeah. That's Lightning Run. I love this ride. 5 stars. I love this ride, but the bunny hops at the end hurt my thighs. You seeing a theme here?
It's like the Thigh Crusher.
Yes.
Sky Rush.
Oh, it's like Thigh Crush, yeah. 5 stars. I screamed priceless.
Screamed priceless?
Yeah, that's not really how that word is used, but okay.
Okay.
Amazing ejector airtime. Best coaster in the park. Here's 1 star. Rough. That's the whole review. Which is funny because that's the last thing I would use to describe the coasters. Not that rough. Yeah. And then last one here. 1 star. The restraints ruined the ride. The seatbelt under the lap bar just ruined the coaster, making it my second least favorite coaster ever. Wow, this is hardcore.
You've not been on many coasters, my friend.
Yeah, why don't you try a Wild Mouse at Lagoon sometime and let me know what you think. This one's a strange one because the seatbelt under the lap bar has never really bothered me. The only thing that I don't like about the seatbelt is it just makes dispatch times longer because you have to do the seatbelt and then you do the lap bar. So it lowers capacity when you have to do both. But that's also, most of the time, that's not a park decision. That's usually a state regulations decision. That's why you can go to one park and you can go ride a hyper coaster at one park and there's no seatbelt, and then you go to another park and there is. Like, it's just, you know, it depends on the state and the regulations. Sometimes the parks may decide that themselves, but generally speaking, I think it's the states that regulate that more than anything. So
got it. Okay.
Well, there is our introduction to Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom. So let's hop into the time machine here. Let's buckle up, pull down the lap bar, keep your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the time machine at all times.
Everything.
And all the things.
All the things.
Let's go back.
Put your phone away.
Put your phone... Secure all loose articles.
Seriously.
Yeah, you might lose your phone back in the 1500s if you're not careful. Oh, let's go back to 1987. All right, 1987. Now, as I mentioned, some of this is going to lap over from our Storm Chaser episode, but if you haven't listened to that one, this is all new to you. And if you have, then I promise we'll get to new stuff in a minute here. So
it won't be that boring.
No, it's
I'll make it interesting.
Yeah, because Haley's still, as far as Haley's concerned, this is all brand new.
This is a new episode for me. Don't worry, guys. I got you.
Yep. All right. 1977, the Kentucky State Fair Board announced plans to build a permanent theme park on the state fairgrounds in Louisville, Kentucky.
See, this is all new to me.
I know. So, I don't know if you remember this, but so Kentucky Kingdom has a really strange way that the park operates. So, it was built on the old state fairgrounds.
I remember this part. Yeah.
And essentially, the fair board still owns the land that the park sits on. And so the land is just leased out to whoever is operating the park at the time. So right now, Hershend is the chain that owns the park. Mm-hmm. So they pay the fair board, whatever, fees for, for the land and all that. And then Hershend is the one that actually operates the park and manages it and all that. Mm-hmm. So, and then if there's construction projects that they want to do or expansion, like all of that approval has to go through the fair board first. So it's kind of a different situation that Kentucky Kingdom is in versus others. And it shares a parking lot with the Louisville Convention Center as well.
Yep.
So there's just a lot. It's very different from how other amusement parks operate. So construction for Kentucky Kingdom would take 9 years. I don't know why it took that long, but construction didn't begin for another 9 years. I forgot. So they announced this new park in 77, but they didn't start construction until 1986. So I don't know why it took them so long to get things running. But once they started construction, they breezed right through it because the park would officially open on May 23rd, 1987. So here's this was like a display that they had of the park before it opened. Here's a picture from opening day.
So many balloons. I love that.
Yeah, and then here's
Parker would hate it.
And then here's a little newspaper article here. It says about 400 people attended the 45-minute opening ceremonies, which included a small parade of cars, carriages, and people walking from the east side of the fairgrounds to the west side where the park is located. So there you go. All right, let's see. So the problem is they really didn't build enough for the park. So it's like after a decade of development, you would think they really got this nailed down what they want to do. But from other articles and things I've seen, the park seemed to be had a lot of stuff for kids, but it was pretty lacking in attractions for teenagers and adults.
Yeah,
and so
got bored super
yes,
fast.
Exactly. And so after a miserable 1987 season, the park went bankrupt after just 1 year. So that's pretty bad. Here's an article from the I don't know, is this oh yeah, so this is after the park closed. It says, when Kentucky Kingdom opened, I was skeptical, and when it closed, I was not surprised. Being a roller coaster addict, I traveled to Kings Island a lot, which Kings Island's about 3 hours from here, so yeah. It's fairly close. I could not believe that Kentucky Kingdom actually intended to draw a crowd from Kings Island. Apparently, I was not the only one in light of its short period of operation. Kentucky Kingdom is a good idea, and Louisville needs it, but it has had its problems. Kings Island has an abundance of rides for all ages. For example, Kings Island has 5 roller coasters compared to Kentucky Kingdom's 1, and has 2 log flumes to Kentucky Kingdom's 1. I don't know why any park would need 2 log flumes, though, if we're being fair here.
Yeah,
I think Kings Island has because we didn't really do the water ride, so I'm trying to remember. I think Kings Island has 1 big log flume, and then there's a little, I think in Camp Snoopy there's a little kid, a shorter log flume for the kids. I think that's why they have 2 there. But anyway, but the point is, Kings Island has 5 roller coasters at this point in 1987, and Kentucky Kingdom opened with 1. So that just gives you an idea of how lacking the park was at this point.
Ouch.
So many of the contractors and vendors went unpaid, and attractions began to be auctioned off in 1989. So
unpaid?
Yeah, that was no good.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. So in 1989, a group of investors led by a guy by the name of Ed Hart would purchase the rights to operate the park from the State Fair Board. So the State Fair, like I said, still owns the land, but Ed's company, Theme Parks LLC, would operate the park, just as it runs today. So they do all these major refurbs and started adding more attractions, added another wooden roller coaster called Thunder Run, and the park would reopen in 1990. So here's some construction from the early stages. So so I think they had 2 roller coasters at this point. So they had Thunder Run, the big wooden coaster, and then they had a Vekoma boomerang called the Vampire. So that's what we got going on here. And then, they added a water slide, some other stuff. You can just kind of see the construction here. So
is that water slide like something that you actually like sit down on? Like
it kind of, so what is it? Atop the Squid water slide. Doesn't say anything else in the article here. I mean, it kind of looks like almost looks like a slide that you would like, those, like, they're not water slides. They're just like slides that you put it's almost like a towel.
Mat.
Yeah. A mat, that's what they're called. And then you just slide down on that. That's what it looks like, but apparently it's a water slide. So I guess there are water slides where you still lay down on a mat, huh? So that could be what this is. So, but it's like one of those mats that like it curls up in the front so it doesn't get stuck under the water. And yeah, that's probably what it is. So attendance on opening day was 5 times higher than it was for the 1987 opening of the park. So just adding a few more attractions and a roller coaster like made a big difference. And so, while there was 400 people in 1987, 5 times higher, I guess that's like 2,000 people that showed up in 1990. So big difference. So the park had so much success that by the end of 1990, they had already announced that a water park expansion would be coming for the 1992 season.
Okay.
And so they're working on that. Kentucky Kingdom was the fastest growing amusement park in North America from 1990 to 1997. Went from 130,000 in attendance in 1990. By 1997, they crossed the 1 million mark up to 1.2 million.
That's impressive, actually.
That's really impressive. So, I mean, not a lot of parks get above 1 million. Like, usually if you're getting above 1 million, your park is pretty safe. Like, that's a nice, healthy number that's going to bring in enough money to keep the park operating.
Right.
Now, obviously, parks can operate with less than that. You just don't get as many investments and things like that. The parks tend to be smaller, but I mean, I'm trying to think of a park that would be in that realm of attendance. I mean, probably Silver Dollar City, honestly, is probably in that realm. Maybe a little bit more. Silver Dollar City might be like 1.5 million, but I mean, you get the idea. It's a decent number. So the rapid growth of the park actually caught the attention of a lot of others in the amusement industry. And in 1997, Premier Parks made an offer to purchase Kentucky Kingdom. And on September 26, 1997, the agreement was made official, and that they would be they had purchased the park for $64 million, which was not too shabby. So Premier Parks was buying lots of amusement parks at this time. They were just kind of in this huge expansion. Now the name might not.
Interesting that people are like, well, what's our next step for our business? Let's go buy some amusement parks.
They really were. They were super aggressive with their growth strategy.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah. So I mean, this article even talks about, I think, operates 12 theme and water parks across the country. Now, Premier Parks might not sound familiar. That's because Premier Parks, a couple years later, turns into Six Flags, which obviously everybody knows Six Flags. So this is the early stages of Six Flags expansion in the late 90s. And so let's see. So Premier Parks made another massive purchase a few months later after. Oh, sorry, no. I got that mixed up. Premier Parks purchased Six Flags. That's right. Sorry, I don't know why I got that mixed up.
Goodness, Mr.
I know.
Enthusiast.
Sorry. Here, slap me on the hand. There we go. Six Flags was separate from this, but then Premier Parks was purchasing things left and right, and they ended up buying all of the Six Flags parks, and then they rebranded the whole company to Six Flags. So it still became Six Flags, but it was a separate thing, and then they bought Six Flags, and they're just like, I mean, kind of what's going on with Cedar Fair right now.
Right.
Cedar Fair and
Six. What they're gonna call it.
Who knows? Well, we know what they've already said they're going to call it Six Flags.
I think that's stupid.
Well, I mean, but be honest. Before I got into the coaster enthusiast thing, had you ever heard of Cedar Fair?
Yeah, I lived right by Cedar.
You'd heard of Cedar Point.
No, not Cedar Fair.
You hadn't heard of Cedar Fair. And that's the difference, right? Like, some people don't even know that Kings Island and Cedar Point are part of the same chain. So that's the thing I think they're going off of, is Six Flags is a recognizable brand that people associate with amusement parks, where Cedar Fair is kind of like, I don't know. So anyway, we'll have to see what ends up happening with all the names of the parks. Yeah. I hope what it probably will be, and what I hope it's going to be, is it'll be like Cedar Point, a Six Flags park, something like that.
I hope so, because I hope they don't change it.
No, it's like Six Flags over Ohio. It's like,
that's stupid.
Don't do that.
Oh, it will get so confusing.
Six Flags over Cincinnati, like, it's just yuck. I don't want them to do that, and I don't think they will.
Do you think they'll get rid of the camels at Cedar Point?
Oh, if you haven't seen that,
look on TikTok.
Was it yesterday?
Something like that.
I think it was yesterday that there were some camels that are at the petting zoo at Cedar Point that escaped, and were not just escaped and were like wandering around, like full on running through the paths of the park, and like people are having to get out of the way. Like, I don't know what is happening over there right now. It's crazy. Oh, that was something else. So,
well, apparently, like, there was somebody that like understood what camels are and their behavior and everything. They were like, that camel's just doing happy kicks. Like, those are his happy kicks. And like,
well, you're the only one here that knows that. Everyone else thinks they're about to be trampled.
Well, it was on one of the comments on TikTok is like,
oh, so they weren't even there.
Yeah.
So this is an article here about the purchase. It was by far the largest amusement park acquisition ever. So, for example,
even over Six Flags now?
Well, I'd have to. I don't know what you. This one's a little different because it's not Six Flags purchasing Cedar Fair or vice versa. It's a merger. Like, they're basically just they're not purchasing one another. They're just kind of merging into one company. So that's kind of a different thing. So. Okay. But yeah. So like some of these other ones here. So when Cedar Fair bought Knott's Berry Farm, they bought it for $250 million. When Six Flags bought Six Flags Over Texas, it was for $370 million. Premier Parks buying all of the Six Flags theme parks for $1.9 billion. Whoa. That was, like, Premier Parks was just like, we are going to buy...
Give me all the parks.
Buy all the parks.
All the parks are mine.
Crazy. They really were just going, they're going nuts. And so it lists all the other parks that they were buying here. So they bought some other ones, The Great Escape, Elitch Gardens, and then here's Kentucky Kingdom right here. So anyway, they were on a tear, and all of these purchases they had. So they started buying things in 1996, and then they bought. This is up through, when did they purchase Six Flags? It was in where's my date here? Oh, in April of 1998. So, like, 2 years they've made all of these huge purchases. It's crazy. So, this ends up... Well, actually, we'll see how this ends up. We'll just keep going. So because Premier Parks buys all the Six Flags parks, and because it's a more recognizable brand, all of these other parks that they've been purchasing everything becomes rebranded to Six Flags. And so... in June of 1998, Kentucky Kingdom becomes Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom. So here's some pictures from the. I don't know I guess it wasn't the opening of the park because it was in June, but so there's some pictures from the rebrand to Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom. So they also would open a new roller coaster, Twisted Sister, which would eventually become Storm Chaser, which we talked about. And that was in June of 1998 as well. Okay. So that was stuff we covered in our Storm Chaser episode. So now let's move on. Here's where we diverge, okay? This is where we diverge to
make a diverging
new stuff.
Noise?
So, what is a diverging noise?
I think like a noise that like unstuck.
Okay, we'll go with that. So during this time frame in Six Flags history, the company had decided to make I'll say it was a bold operational move that lasted for about 25 years. It was called the Six Flags Ride Rotation Program.
What?
Okay? So here's how... The Six Flags Ride Rotation Program.
That's a mouthful.
I mean, really, it was just the Ride Rotation Program. Internally is probably what they called it. So here's how it worked. Corporate officials developed this program as a way for parks to introduce new rides at each of their properties as often as possible, but also cut down on capital investments. The program was simple. Certain flat rides and coasters within the chain would be relocated to another park every several years. So then when a ride was relocated, Six Flags could market this as a new ride. Even though it wasn't, it was just brought from another park. And then once the newness of the ride wore off, the process would start over and they'd send it to another park. So, like...
That's cheating.
It is interesting.
That's cheating.
It is interesting to say the least. Like, if you're an enthusiast or, you know, pretty up to date on the amusement industry, like, you understand
Cheaters.
that this is, like, not really a new ride.
Cheaters.
But, like, if you're the GP, you would have no idea. You're just
know.
oh, cool.
There's my hybridness.
So, but I don't know. It's interesting. So, and there were lots of examples of this. We could look at some good examples, some bad, and some terrible. Because there are some coasters that, like, after they were relocated, they were just garbage. So,
well, yeah, you're moving too much. It's like they're gonna wear down.
Oh, it's not gonna be as smooth as when you first built the thing.
No.
So,
whoever came up with that bright idea?
I mean, it saved the company money. I mean, because I mean, you're not really building new rides.
Feel like there's
you're
a
just
line that some people shouldn't cross on when it comes to, like, because I'm a very thrifty person. Like, I love, you know, finding a good deal on stuff. Like, you know, if it's used, whatever. But a coaster, you thrift it too many times, and it's gonna be junk.
It's like this is the Goodwill of roller coasters.
or the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. It's the Sisterhood of Traveling Roller Coasters.
Yeah.
What's
so
more,
it's
Carnival roller coasters or...
Oh, definitely Carnival roller coasters. Good gracious. Never. Oh, so yeah, this is what's going on. So, and like I said, there's lots of examples we could look at, but Kentucky Kingdom was affected by a few of these relocations, so we can just look at those. So, so this is the vampire that we looked at earlier, this Vekoma Boomerang that opened in 1990 when the park reopened. So the coaster experienced a lot of mechanical issues in 1999. So Six Flags decided to relocate and refurbish this ride and send it to Six Flags New England. And it actually never got relocated again, and it continues to operate at Six Flags New England to this day as Flashback. So if you've been on the Vekoma Boomerang there at Six Flags New England, that's a fun fact there. It came from Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom back in the day. So in return, Six Flags actually decided to build a brand new roller coaster at Kentucky Kingdom. So they ended up building this Wild Mouse coaster right here. This was a Mauer Wild Mouse coaster named Roadrunner Express, which would open in May of 2000. So pretty standard Wild Mouse coaster.
Pretty standard.
Yeah, I mean, there's like no decoration on the ride. Yeah.
Break your neck while flipping you around those bends.
This is the same brand or the same manufacturer as the one at Lagoon. So I can't speak to this one, but I will say the Lagoon one is...
Okay, I'm curious. What about the Wild Mouse in Idlewild?
See, that one's a Vekoma one, so that one's a different manufacturer, so it could be totally different. So, and like the ones like because we went on Apple Zapple at King's Dominion.
Yeah.
So, but that one I actually enjoyed. It wasn't too bad. I like the Mock Rides Wild Mouse because I've done that one, and then I think the other Mock Rides one I've done is Ricochet at Carowinds. I think is a Mock Rides one. So. I don't know. There's some that aren't too bad. So it kind of depends on the manufacturer. So and how well the park takes care of it, obviously. So like Apple's Apple is fairly new, and they take really good care of it. So it's a pretty smooth ride. I actually really like King's Dominions. I think that's my favorite Wild Mouse I've been on is the one there at King's Dominion. But So 3 years later, Six Flags decided to relocate a coaster from another park to Kentucky Kingdom. So they've, sent one off, then had another one built. Now Six Flags is sending them another one. So this was a coaster from Six Flags Over Georgia. The coaster was known as Viper at Six Flags Over Georgia. Now this is the second time this coaster had been relocated because it was originally constructed as Tidal Wave at Marriott's Great America in 1978. Six Flags purchased that park in 1984, and then they relocated it to Six Flags Over Georgia in 1991. So it was Tidal Wave at what eventually became Six Flags Great America.
All the names that they gave it too, they're like...
Well, that's the thing. Like, if they rename it, like in all three of these instances, they renamed it and repainted it.
Yeah.
So it
looks
really,
like a new coaster,
yeah, it doesn't exactly. It doesn't show
cheating!
up to. It doesn't show up to the park.
You're cheating.
Six Flags is never gonna follow us and keep calling them cheaters.
Sorry.
As if they even listen.
You never know.
You never know. But yeah, like that's the thing is like they show up to these parks, but they don't just install it and call it a day. Like they actually repaint it, refurbish it, so it still behaves.
Also, they're
fairly...
flipping. They're flipping a roller coaster.
really, yes. Except they already own it. They're not buying it from another park and then refurbishing it, which I'm sure Six Flags has done too.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Yeah, they're recycling an old coaster. Yeah, so it's an interesting concept for sure. So. So then this would finally, so it was Tidal Wave at Six Flags Great America, Viper at Six Flags Over Georgia, and then it opens at Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom as Greased Lightning. So
Greased Lightning.
Yeah, there you go.
I love that song.
And fun little trivia that only the coaster enthusiasts will care about, so I'll be brief.
And
but this
GP hybrids.
In 2005, Greased Lightning had some track replaced. And the track that was used came from a demolished coaster that was in storage at Six Flags Marine World, which is now Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. It's out in California. The coaster that was in storage there was Tidal Wave from Marriott's Great America in California. So the Marriott parks opened two of these shuttle loops, one in 77 in California, one in 78 in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And then they sold both of those parks, but one park they sold to Cedar Fair, the one in California. So that became California's Great America. And then the one in Chicago they sold to Six Flags, which became Six Flags Great America. Mm-hmm. So now these two coasters belong to two completely different chains, but when they tore down the Tidal Wave at California's Great America, they actually sold the parts to Six Flags. And then Six Flags used those parts to repair this coaster at Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom. So these two coasters that opened at essentially the same time, they were sister coasters that opened at the Marriott parks, eventually ended up being reunited at Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom, of all places.
Interesting.
So, yeah, fun little tidbit there that has no impact on our story whatsoever, but just kind of a fun little fact that I found. So,
at all?
Well, not for the coaster we're talking about. I mean,
okay.
It's just track replacement. Didn't actually do that much, but so that takes us to 2007, where things start to go very wrong for Kentucky Kingdom. So first of all, there was a significant accident that occurred on their drop tower. And so there was lost. It was a bad deal. I'm not going to get into the details because it was not good. No fatalities, but significant injuries. It was nasty. So the park was under lawsuit, and they were under scrutiny because of the whole situation. They ended up removing the ride. And then Six Flags was also kind of in financial troubles at this point, and they were cutting down on expenses chain-wide, just, at all the parks. Yeah. At Kentucky Kingdom, this led to the entire northwest section of the park being closed in 2008 and 2009. Can you imagine that, like going to a park and there's just like a whole section of the park that's just closed?
That'd be so weird.
That would be really weird. Like, it's like one ride, I get it. Even two rides is like, okay, fine.
Because they're doing an area.
Right, but to like just have a whole section of the park closed for 2 years,
that'd be so
that is
weird.
so wild. Like,
I couldn't wrap my head around that.
I know. I'd be like, well, I guess we'll go to Holiday World. You know, like, why keep going to this park where it's not even completely open? So, but, I mean, this was kind of a sign of things to come. As June of 2009, Six Flags would officially file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And, yeah, this is a bad deal. And this is the backside of Premier Parks just buying properties like crazy. And, like, they would buy all these parks, and then they would immediately add, like, a roller coaster for, like, 3 years in a row. Like, even, there were some parks they would buy it, and they would immediately build 2 new roller coasters. And it's just, like, that is crazy to
it's almost,
just...
like, overly excessive.
It is. Exactly what it is. It's just, they were just spending way too much money. And so, that leads to...
burning a hole in their pockets.
Yeah. And so, this ends up, you know, and then, like... The economy wasn't great in 2009 anyway, so, I mean, it is a difficult situation. So, anyway, this doesn't lead to the company completely going away, obviously, but it does mean that the company has to be restructured, and they have to, you know, financially figure out how to pay off their debt and all these different things, right? Mm-hmm. So, that obviously has some impacts on the parks themselves. In September 2009, Kentucky Kingdom announced that their stand-up coaster, Chang, would be removed for the 2010 season. That coaster now resides at Six Flags Great Adventure under the name Green Lantern, where it continues to operate to this day. And that was basically the headlining attraction at Kentucky Kingdom at that point. So when they removed that, everyone kind of saw the writing on the wall, so to speak. And... they basically, what had happened was part of the bankruptcy required Six Flags to renegotiate its terms with the Kentucky State Fair Board, because Six Flags essentially wanted to offer to share profits with the Fair Board in exchange for foregoing the 9 years of rent that they had on their current lease. So they're essentially saying, like, if we don't have to pay you the lease, then we will share, you know, whatever profit we make from the park instead. And the State Fair Board wasn't having that, and so rather than renegotiating everything, Six Flags just decided to walk away. And so in February of 2010, Six Flags announced that Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom would not reopen. So kind of like, I'm not going to get into the legal nonsense of how this all works, but the Fair Board and well, I could get even more into the weeds, but the Fair Board and Six Flags ultimately had to settle who owned what, like a couple getting a divorce, like just like, okay, you keep this coaster and we'll take this coaster, and just sounds like a nightmare. Sounds terrible.
I wouldn't want to do that.
So Six Flags ended up with Roadrunner Express, which was also sent to Six Flags New England. So Six Flags New England got 2 roller coasters out of this whole deal, which is hilarious to me. Continues to operate to this day as Gotham City Gauntlet.
So they both operate. That's so funny.
Yeah, so there are 2 coasters at Six Flags New England operating to this day that came from the old Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom in the 90s and early 2000s. So
such a coincidence.
Yep, so there you go. You're riding 2 coasters from Kentucky Kingdom when you go to Six Flags New England, which is just fascinating to me. So now Grease...
Again, reduce, reuse, recycle.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
So now Greased Lightning, on the other hand, would continue to be owned by the Fair Board, so that would remain at the park. And after the dust settled, and you know, obviously the wooden coasters stayed at the park because you can't really relocate wooden coasters. So you can, but it's way too expensive for Six Flags to even consider it. So one steel coaster...
You can?
You technically can. So it's happened before. In fact, the coaster that won the Golden Ticket Award for Best Wooden Coaster last year is Phoenix at Knoebels, which is it was relocated from a park in Texas. So
that's insane.
It's crazy.
How do they even do that?
Knoebels is on a different level when it comes to roller coaster construction. I'm dying to get to Knoebels so that we can do some episodes about their coasters, because they have some.
California?
No, it's in Pennsylvania.
Where's it at?
It's like an hour and a half north of Hershey Park. So,
What's cheaper, Hershey or Knoebels?
Guarantee Knoebels, because Knoebels is pay per ride. Free entry, pay per ride is how Knoebels works. So,
interesting.
Yeah, it is tempting.
That is tempting.
So, all right. So, this brings us back to kind of where Storm Chaser's story also kind of ended up here, because Storm Chaser was built from Twisted Twins, which was one of the wooden coasters that was left at the park. So
there's too many twisted names.
So
I'm going cross-eyed.
There's a lot of Twisteds. So Ed Hart would once again...
Very twisted. How many twisted there is.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You guys. I'm trying so hard right now.
We got this. We got this.
Push through. Push through.
So Ed Hart would once again step in an effort to save the theme park a second time. May of 2010, he partners with the Fair Board in an effort to raise money for the reopening of the park. That didn't have as much success as they needed. January of 2012, Holiday World began discussions with the Fair Board about purchasing the park, to the point that they actually announced that they would be opening the park and they would be renaming it Bluegrass Boardwalk. And this was kind of meant to be like Holiday World's second gate, so to speak, even though it's like an hour away. So they had planned to reopen it on May 11th, 2013. But just a few months later, those plans just completely fell apart. And here's an article. We're not going to read all the details, but really just felt like Holiday World just felt like there was just too much government red tape. Like their negotiations with the Fair Board were just getting too complicated, and they just decided it was too much and walked away. So some enthusiasts think that the Fair Board was worried that Holiday World was just going to buy it just to kind of run it down and close it to kind of eliminate the competition. Knowing what I know about the owners of Holiday World, I don't think that's what was going to happen. I don't know why they couldn't get it worked out, but anyway, it never happened. So after this, Ed Hart began a third time to try to reopen the park. And this time he actually came in with what he offered was $120 million investment into the park, $50 million to reopen, and then $70 million in ongoing investments after it reopened. And they came to an agreement, and they announced that the park would be reopening. So that's good. A lot of money to get it back to that point, and try to, save the park after all the damage that Six Flags had done. So yeah. So unfortunately, in the interim between, all of this from 2009 to 2012, Greased Lightning had just become a lost cause, because it's just been sitting there collecting dust for, 3 years.
Right.
And it had been built originally in 1978. So it's a really old coaster, too. So it just, from what I can see, I'm pretty sure it was just scrapped, because I can't see that it was sent to another park or sold or whatever. I'm guessing it was just scrapped for, for metal or whatever. So with Roadrunner Express and Greased Lightning now gone, park officials had a significant plot of land at the very front of the park that needed to be filled for the reopening. In June 2013, Ed Hart confirmed that a new roller coaster would be coming to that plot of land. So that's exciting. Mm-hmm. The rumors said that the original plans called for a $15 million B&M roller coaster, but I could find no official confirmation of that, and I don't even know what B&M coaster could fit on that plot of land. Like, B&M coasters are pretty huge.
Yeah, they are.
So, nowadays they're building family coasters that could fit in that plot of land, but back in 2013 they weren't doing stuff that size. So,
right.
I don't know if this is true or not, but what would actually open on that plot of land was somewhat unexpected. So, November 16th, 2013, Kentucky Kingdom officially announced Lightning Run, a $7 million Hyper GTX coaster by Chance Rides. Now, some of you, including Haley, might be asking, who is Chance Rides? in the 43, 42, now 43 episodes we've done, we've probably mentioned Chance Rides. I could probably count on one hand how many times we've talked about them. So who is Chance Rides? Well, Chance Manufacturing was founded in 1961, and they really made a name for themselves doing flat rides, mostly like carousels and trains and Ferris wheels. So they were known in the industry, but not necessarily for roller coasters, so to speak. The only roller coaster that they really did, do you remember when, if you're able to look it up, you can look this up, but I'm trying to see if Haley remembers. Remember when we talked about Hershey Park had 2 toboggan coasters that was basically like a spike, and then would just do like this. You remember that? It just does like this spiral down. That was Chance Rides that built those back in the 70s through the 90s.
That's weird. Okay.
But that was like the only coaster they did for years, was just these little toboggan coasters, and they're almost completely gone nowadays. I think the only one still operating in the States is in Wisconsin at Little America. So I've heard they are super uncomfortable to ride, but it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get that credit up at Little America. So
okay, I don't like that term, once in a lifetime. For what? For what?
the credit, Haley. For the credit.
Screw it. I'm not.
We still got to figure out how many coaster credits you have. I have a feeling you're creeping up on 100, so we got to figure that out so you can pick what coaster you want to be number 100. What?
Yeah, I guess so.
You're like, I don't care.
I don't.
So that's back to the GP side of you. We've really been bouncing back.
I do, but I don't. It's just like I'm not as passionate about it as you are, so it's
which is fair. That's how we introduce our episodes. So,
but I want to kind of do it so that way I could say, like, on our podcast, I hit my 100.
I hit my 100.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's my hybrid.
Yeah, there's.
I'm.
That's why you're in the middle. You care, but you don't care. Like, part of you cares, a part of you doesn't.
Yeah.
So that's Chance Rides. Now, in 1998, they introduced another coaster model, their Big Dipper family coaster. There's still a few of these that operate. There's one at Michigan's Adventure, and there's another one at Six Flags Over Texas. Then in 2001, Dana Morgan, the founder of D.H. Morgan, decided to retire. Now, we've talked about Morgan a few times. To recap, they had a lot of big projects in the 90s and early 2000s. So they constructed the trio of hypercoasters for Cedar Fair, Wild Thing at Valley Fair, Steel Force at Dorney Park, and our very own Mamba at Worlds of Fun that we just went on a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So they also had recently constructed the tallest and longest coaster in the world, Steel Dragon 2000 at Nagashima Spa Land in Japan. And then their last project before Morgan retired was the reimagining of the one and only Phantom's Revenge at Kennywood. So a lot of good stuff that Morgan was working on here in the late 90s and early 2000s. They were on a tear. But despite that, Dana Morgan retires and decides to sell the company. And the eventual purchaser was Chance Manufacturing. They purchased Morgan on June 14th, 2001, and shortly rebranded to Chance Rides. So the next decade after that, Chance would really only construct a few other family coasters. They also worked as, they manufactured the track for some of Vecoma's projects in the U.S., which is sometimes a thing coaster manufacturers will do if, like, they're a European company and they want an American company to represent them in the States, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. They'll kind of work that out that way so they don't have to hire people, to work across the water from wherever they're at. So that is a thing that happens occasionally. So but Chance Rides' big break came in 2014 with the announcement of Lightning Run. The coaster model that they had developed, the Hyper GTX coaster, was described as a compact thrill ride with extreme bank turns and airtime hills. Essentially, the idea behind the coaster was we'll take like what B&M does and what Morgan did with big 200-foot coasters and just cut it in half. We're going to make the coaster will still have really great airtime. So you cut the big hill down in half, but you also cut the little hills in half. So that way you're still getting plenty of airtime over those hills and whatever. So it's an interesting concept, right?
Right.
And I mean, it's kind of the same thing RMC's figured out how to do with, I like Twisted Timbers. How tall is Twisted Timbers? I bet it's right in that same realm of like 100 feet tall. It's not super important to our story, but I mean, the idea is that you can still make a small coaster that packs a big punch, right? I mean, that's kind of the same thing that we experienced a few weeks ago with Zambezi Zinger, right?
Right.
Yeah, Twisted Timbers is 111 feet tall, so it's only 10 feet taller than Lightning Run, but Twisted Timbers is easily better than some 300 foot coasters that I've been on. You know what I mean? Like
right.
Sizes and everything, and I think that's kind of what Chance Rides has figured out with this Hyper GTX model. Now, the name Lightning Run... Oh, sorry, I skipped one thing here. They displayed one of the trains at the 2013 IAPA Expo. So here's the lead car for the green train that's at display at the expo there. If you're not familiar, the IAPA Expo is basically like the amusement industry's big exposition that they do every year, where like all the manufacturers and the parks get together to make announcements. Yeah, it's like Comic-Con for coaster enthusiasts, except it's less Comic-Con and more like trade show. It's more business oriented than just there to see cool stuff. But coaster enthusiasts do enjoy going to it. The name Lightning Run is a tribute to two other Kentucky Kingdom coasters. First of all, it's a tribute to Thunder Run, which was still at the park and just undergone a $1 million restoration for the reopening of the park. And then obviously the lightning in the name is a tribute to Greased Lightning, the coaster that it would be replacing. So
right.
fun little tribute there. I wonder if the green train has anything to do with the green track of Greased Lightning too. I don't know if that was done on purpose. Maybe not, but Lightning Run would actually utilize the exact same entrance and station as Greased Lightning too. So if we look here are the entrances for the two rides. You can see it's the exact same thing. They just took Greased Lightning off of this one and put Lightning Run on the other one. But also you can even see like they didn't even remove the entrance and exit signs here. Those are exactly the same as they were for the two rides, which is kind of funny. But
again, reuse,
if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So, and then here's a comparison of the plot of land that the two sat on. So this is pre-park closing, because you can see here's Roadrunner Express right here, and then we got Greased Lightning that kind of runs right along the road here. And then I think Vampire, the Vekoma Boomerang, actually sat like right here before that was moved. So actually,
it's a pretty decent sized park.
Yeah. So you had three coasters that were in this spot, and then all three of them got removed, and now you've kind of replaced all three of those with this coaster that takes up a lot more space. And then you can see here's the station here, and the same exact station here for Lightning Run. So
yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
So, construction began shortly thereafter with a goal of getting the coaster ready for the park's grand reopening. And just like clockwork, Kentucky Kingdom would reopen to the public on May 24th, 2014, with Lightning Run as the headlining attraction. The ride experience is as follows. The train leaves the station and immediately starts climbing the lift hill. Riders crest the hill 100-foot lift and drop at an angle of 80 degrees, hitting the top speed of 55 miles per hour. The track then takes a turn to the left while traveling upwards into a large airtime hill before dropping down and entering a tight overbank turn to the left. A turn to the right follows, and the train crests a small hill before turning to the left with a small banked airtime hill turning to the left with a small banked airtime hill, and then followed by a small drop down to ground level. The track turns to the right while traveling upwards, hits a small airtime hill before taking another right turn. After another off-axis airtime hill, the train makes another right turn back to ground level, where the train maneuvers through a low-to-the-ground banked S-curve. Upon exit, the train travels swiftly over 3 intense airtime hills before rising up into the final brakes. So, that is crazy that they're able to pack that many elements into a coaster that's only 2,500 feet long.
Yeah.
Like, generally major coasters are, let's call it 3,500 to a mile long is generally where you're getting like your extreme thrill coasters, is that kind of length. So for them to be able to pack that many airtime hills in, that small of a layout is just crazy. So, and it's a lot of fun. I could sing Lightning Run's praises all day long, and I wish more parks would build these. We'll talk in a minute about that, but early reviews for the ride were outstanding. Kentucky Kingdom locals and enthusiasts alike were blown away by the intensity of such a seemingly small coaster. You know, some people, like, looking at it, you might mistake it for like a borderline family coaster, but it is anything but that. Like,
Really?
kind of, to me, feels very similar to Zambezi Zinger. Like, you watch Zambezi Zinger, you're like, oh, it's not super tall, you know, it seems pretty smooth.
There's no
like,
way that's
and holy, it is so intense for, you know, how tall it is. That one's even shorter. That one's like 75 feet tall. So it is deceptively intense, which I think Lightning Run kind of falls into that category too.
Look at that person holding her hand behind her.
I saw that when I put this photo in there.
That would
like,
be so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
For both of them.
Yeah, well, think about it, because, like, if you, like, you know, hit this airtime moment or whatever, like, you can just slam your head into your own arm, like.
Don't do that.
Also, don't be the guy that was holding his phone on this ride when I rode with him, and then it flew off the ride and he lost it, so.
Well, we had that happen whenever I was on.
Oh, when you went on Air Force One, someone did that too.
But there was multiple people that had their phone. It's like, why would you put your phone?
We could stand on our soapbox about that, but we've done it before.
Please don't take your phone. That's it. That's all I...
Lightning Run helped Kentucky Kingdom sell over 100,000 season passes in 2014, and the park achieved an annual attendance of 600,000. So, not bad. I mean, it's, you know, half as much as the park's best years in the late 90s, but it's a good place to start. You know, they're trying to make a recovery here. At the 2014 Golden Ticket Awards, Lightning Run would place 5th for the best new attraction of the year. It's kind of interesting because in the CoasterBot rankings, it currently ranks above all of the coasters that finished ahead of it except for one. So it was beat out by Escape from Gringotts at Universal Studios Islands of Adventure. That one's at 176 in the CoasterBot rankings. Finishing third was Goliath at Six Flags Great America, which is a wooden coaster from RMC. That one still ranks above Lightning Run at number 29. And then finishing second was Banshee at Kings Island, which we've been on. It's a very good inverted coaster. Currently ranked at number 80. And then the winning coaster for that year was Flying Turns at, as we talked about earlier, Knoebels, which is only ranked at number 253 in the CoasterBot rankings. But Flying Turns, I think, won because of the technological and engineering feat that it was. And we'll have to talk about that ride if we ever get to ride it someday. It took them 8 years to build this coaster. Like, it was crazy. So another story for another day. But Lightning Run would finish at number 25 in the Steel Coaster. 8 years.
I can't
And it's 8 years, and it's essentially a family coaster too.
What? Even.
But it is a technological and engineering feat that no other park has been able to duplicate. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting.
Which one is that one again?
Flying Turns at Knoebels. We haven't been on that one. It's at that park we were talking about earlier. So.
Gotta go to Knoebels.
Yep. So Kentucky Kingdom would continue to invest in the park to keep it open for years to come. They would open new roller coasters in 2015. Storm Chaser, as we talked in a previous episode, opens in 2016. Kentucky Flyer opens in 2019. So there's rumors that another coaster could be coming for 2025. So we'll have to see.
Don't listen to the gossip.
Well, to be fair, they did close a coaster earlier this year. I guess technically it was closed when I went, but then they officially announced late last year that it was being removed. So there's like a plot of land that they need to fill now.
Interesting.
So
it's a log flume.
They're just gonna put in like they're just gonna put more parking in, like on the backside of the park.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Now, despite the low cost and intense thrill of Lightning Run, no other parks have built a Hyper GTX. And, like, it's got great ratings. Like you said, it's number 41 in the CoasterBot. It hasn't had, like, a bunch of technical issues, like some prototypes. So, what gives? I asked our followers on X/Twitter this question a few months ago, kind of in preparation for this episode, just because I wanted to see what kind of responses I got. So, this is kind of what people are saying. Some people are saying it's too intense for the general public, which I could see that, especially if you think it's a family coaster just because of its size, and then you get shocked on how intense it is.
Right.
Because it's not like a record holder of any kind. It doesn't really have a great marketing hook for the GP. Like if enthusiasts saw this being built, they'd be all excited about it. But for the GP, like you can't say it's the tallest or fastest or long. Like you got nothing like that to try to attract the general public to visit the park. I've heard that it falls in this weird middle ground of being too expensive for the small parks, like an Idlewild or something like that. But it's too low of a capacity for big parks like a Kings Island or a Kennywood or something like that.
It's just perfect for Knoebels.
For Kentucky Kingdom.
Oh my gosh.
It's okay, we've been talking about Knoebels a lot. To be fair, it actually might be a perfect fit for Knoebels, because Knoebels kind of falls in that middle ground too of like not a big park but not a small park either. So
yeah,
there you go, Knoebels. Here's your
your next coaster.
Build a Chance Rides Hyper GTX. That should be your next. That should be your next coaster, Knoebels.
Just take our advice and do it.
The other rumor I've heard is that Chance Rides gave Kentucky Kingdom a good deal on the coaster because it was a prototype. And now that they've seen it successful, the cost is a lot higher than it was for Kentucky Kingdom. So who knows? Now, a decade later, another Hyper GTX is finally opening. It's not open yet, but it is opening, because there's one under construction at Mattel Adventure Park in Arizona. So this is, it's going to be called Twin Mill Racer, themed to Hot Wheels.
Yeah,
so we've talked about this coaster before. So Chance Rides is the one that's constructing this one. And you can see it's slightly different than Lightning Rod, because this one will have inversions. But it is the same coaster model. It's just an inversion variant of the same one. So I think it'll have a loop and a corkscrew, from what I understand. So looks fun.
It does look like fun.
Now Chance Rides got a pretty sweet deal with this, because they're actually building both of the roller coasters that are opening at this park. So they're building this one.
Where is this park being opened again?
So this one, there's two of them actually. So there's this one opening in Arizona, in Glendale, I think. And then there's another one that just got announced a few months ago that's going to be opening in Kansas City.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah, so now that one's not supposed to open till like 2026, 2027, so it's going to be a while. But if they're successful, then we should be getting one of these fairly close to us, which would be cool.
So that'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Another amusement park close.
So, but yeah, Chance Rides really scored on this contract, because they're building both of the coasters here and both of the coasters at the one in Kansas City. So that's 4 that they're building.
Do they have enough staff to do that?
Well, clearly they do. They accepted the contract.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so at each park there's going to be this one, which is the Hyper GTX, and then they're doing one of their family coasters at each of the parks too. So pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
And the reason we're talking about Lightning Run today is because it just celebrated its 10th anniversary a couple weeks ago. 10th birthday. That's what we decided we're calling them birthdays on the show. Celebrated its 10th birthday a few weeks ago.
I think birthdays are more fun.
Yeah. It's actually pretty cool too, because that also means it's the 10th anniversary of Kentucky Kingdom's reopening. So that's pretty exciting that the park has, made it 10 years now after, the debacle with Six Flags. They've now been able to stay open for 10 years. Now, they did just recently sell, in the past few years, they sold the park to Herschend. So now Herschend operates the park, and they're adding new stuff. So I'm hopeful the park is in a good spot. They're doing Herschend's, legendary Christmas events that they do at Dollywood and Silver Dollar City.
Yeah, they are
Kentucky Kingdom is now doing one of their own this year.
Really?
Which I read a little bit about it, because I knew it was happening, but I was like, well, we can't go, so I'll learn about it later. But I actually read a little bit about it for this episode. They're turning one of their water slides into a giant, they're basically covering it in ice so that you can just ride inner tubes down. Like, you can go sledding down one of the water slides at the Christmas event.
That would be so
Isn't that pretty cool? I was like, that's pretty cool. I like that.
I like that a lot.
And then obviously they're, going crazy with the lights, just like Dollywood and Silver Dollar City do. Yeah. So I'm hopeful that'll help with attendance for the park. They'll have something to draw people in. They're extending the calendar more and more, and so
I would totally go for sledding.
I know, right? Isn't that cool?
That would be so much fun.
And then obviously, like I said earlier, the rumor of a new coaster coming. So good things happen at Kentucky Kingdom. So hopefully they continue to be around for years to come. And it's all thanks to the reopening and Lightning Run as the head attraction to bring Kentucky Kingdom into a new era. So,
Yay.
And that is the history of Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom.
It's a Kentucky Kingdom
It's
era.
the Kentucky Kingdom's Lightning Run era. So,
mouthful, but I guess that works.
So, yeah, I would guess it's probably still the most popular ride at the park too. When I was there, it was the longest line all day. So, like I said, it helps that it's at the front of the park, where Storm Chaser is all the way at the back of the park. So, but you know, me being an enthusiast, I just went to the back of the park first thing, and there was nobody. Like, I could have rode Storm Chaser 20 times in a row. Like, there was nobody back there. So,
you would have done it too.
I know. Especially, they made you get off and go back around, though, which is like...
Yeah, that's dumb.
So, but yeah, if they had let me just stay on without having to get off, I would have just been like, let's go again. So, well, thank you for tuning into this episode of the podcast. Yeah, lots of good stuff coming. We're going to be going back to Worlds of Fun for our next episode, so be sure to tune in for that one. We're going to be talking about a wooden coaster, which doesn't narrow it down much for Worlds of Fun, but you know it's one of the three.
Yep.
So you'll have to tune in to find out which one. And then I think the episode after that, we're doing Kennywood. And then after that, we're doing Disney World. So,
Yay.
Lots of good stuff coming. And I know we're a couple of weeks behind, but we do have some trip reports coming. We've got SeaWorld Orlando coming at you next week, as long as we don't, have anything get in the way.
Please no more craziness.
And then
I'm done.
And then we got Busch Gardens Tampa trip report coming after that, and a Disney World one coming after that. So be sure to keep an eye out on all those trip reports. If you want to see all the pictures and videos from today's episode, you can go and find those all on Twitter/X or on Instagram. Our tag or our handle on both of those is @airtimetraveler. And yeah, I think the only other thing I have to say is if you like that show, be sure to leave us a 5-star review.
We like
helps,
reviews.
Yeah, it helps people find the podcast in the future. And I mean, you guys are killing it right now.
We don't even ask for words. Just click 5 stars.
Just click the stars. You don't even have to leave a review. You could just leave a rating.
Be introverted. I dare you.
So, you guys really are giving us a lot of support right now. The podcast is doing better than it ever has. I mean, we've already broken, again for this month, we've already broken our monthly listening record, and there's still I think there's still a week in the Spotify listening period that we have. So you guys are just, you're giving tons of support for the show right now, and we really appreciate it. So
for sure.
Well, with that being said, we will see you in a couple weeks for the next episode.